Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm gonna put this on. Just in the background, just so we can hear some tunes for a bit as I get everything set up in the background as well. It's gonna take me down a bit, so just give me like a tiny itty bitty bit. We should be fine. I think I've set up everything correctly. Yeah, everything there is fine. I'm not sure where I moved the home, by the way, so that's gonna be a bit interesting. Ah, now I remember where I put the home. Just give me a bit as I change some stuff up. Because I want to use him. Put those down, do this, do that. Ding, dang, bang, boonk, bang, bink. And where is it? There we go. And now we can swap back over to here. Go to here, do this, do that. Click this, click that. This should show up. Oi! Why are you so big? There we go. That's fixed. Let me put this on. Oh. Yeah! It works perfectly now. Now it's actually properly even following me. Good morning. We meet again. Ooh, that's pretty sky. Huh. Well, you get to see a little bit in the background of where we are, because this is going to be the new place for a bit. I think it's actually a great place, considering everything that's going on. I like it. Gets a thumbs up from me. Now, let's see. It's been an interesting week, I would say. I'm gonna sit like right here so I can enjoy that. It's a really pretty like skybox. And the funny thing is, that's actually moving in real time as well. So all of this is based on the real life location wherever the system is set. So it's through that console over there. That thing in the middle. And you can basically see constellations and stuff, you can swap it around, but yeah. This is gonna be the home place for a bit. I think it's a good place. Especially because once we go past like in there's like summer and everything else, it gets brighter because, you know, it's earlier and blah blah blah, it's not as dark. If I remember correctly, it's actually using real-time estimation as well with the, like, how it actually looks. It's pretty sweet. I think it's pretty sweet. Now we just gotta wait until we actually get a notification. Cool. That was a VGet thing. And we'll see what happens. But yeah, good morning to everybody. I'm Sleep, and today we'll hear more stories from Zombs again. They will tell us a little bit more horror stories and whatnot. We'll be listening to them. It's gonna be great. Let me do a little thingamajiggy here. Toggle switch. Bink. That works. And I like these areas. Mostly because we can swap, you know, how everything looks. And I've been waiting for this for a while. I decided that it would be better to do these Midnight Zone broadcast streams in desktop because it's more comfortable. We'll be sitting around for a while listening to stories and stuff. And if I would use the camera and I would be flying it around, like let's say I would bring it out right now, having it somewhere like there, just staring, it would be kind of weird because it's better for me to just directly stare at the person rather than having the camera there. Because it feels like I'm not paying attention if I'm not directly looking towards them, because I want to keep looking. So if I look at the person, then it will be a lot better. At least in my opinion. That is, of course, 100% my opinion. I don't know how everybody else thinks about it, but we did the original couple streams in VR, and then my VR basically gave up, and I was like, well, fuck that. So doing these in desktop mode is, in my opinion, better for this one specifically. The travel agency, I prefer doing it in VR because I'm more hands-on. I get to carry the camera around. It feels more natural and all that jazz. But of course I have to be mindful of the cable and everything else, because when we're moving around a lot, I don't want to do suddenly just pop out and just cause the audio to glitch out, which happened a few times during the last stream. Unfortunate. Happens. And yeah, it just is how it is. I also like using this avatar. It's a public model, by the way. This is a public model from, if we actually check the details, from Mumi. It is sold on a booth, and I highly recommend it. It's really nice. It's a really nice model. But yeah, there's the invite, so let's go and check it out. Bingo! Crunch. Now let's turn that off for a bit. Oh, hell yeah, this place. Oh, yeah! Oh, I can't drive those. Wait, can you? Wait. Hold on, give me a sec. Let's go.
The fact that you could drive that up into the house is crazy.
I didn't think I could. I'm gonna be real, I didn't think I could.
Well, how are you meant to get out, Goobus?
Like that?
Alright, there you go. Alright, fucking hell, bud.
I have arrived.
Yes, I see. Good lord. Hold on, let me fucking get the shit out of my damn house.
Yeah, you have to respawn
I
it from
told you,
there.
man, don't be driving the little kids' cars into my fucking parents' lake house, bro. They're gonna get mad at me.
Drew that up. What the fuck?
Oh. It's fine. Alright. This way, this way. I do have some horror ambience on, but you gotta switch it to fucking,
AV Pro?
Unity.
Oh,
player.
Unity,
Yeah.
Where the fuck was it?
Oh,
Video
my
player.
knees.
Video player. Video. Yeah, some other people were also asking about that earlier today, and I was like, you know what? Almost all of these players now, which use AV3, just do not want to work with that.
Yeah, they really don't. They really, really don't.
So
And
I don't
it's
know what happened with the
quite
AV Pro
irritating.
server specifically, but it seems to only function with whatchamaffucking call it? Other videos that are not on there.
Mhm.
Did you, by the way, put it to play immediately, or is it like you'll just start it soon?
It should be playing already. It's a 3-hour comp.
Resync. It's on Unity. Resync.
The scramble to find like good royalty-free horror ambience is fucking crazy. Every
is.
time.
You might need to reload it.
Perhaps. Bink bink. Reload.
Yep, there you go.
There we go. Okay.
Turn that up a bit. There we go.
Alright. Yes. Hello, friends. Welcome back to another installment of the Midnight Zone. I'm very excited for these new stories that we've got here today. Let me pull these up right here. So we are going to first be reading a story called I'm Blind, I'm Not Sure How Many Steps My Staircase Has. This was written 2 years ago, and of course I found this through my favorite fucking horror story podcast, Creepcast. Shout out to them. It is a very interesting story in the case that, like, it'll leave you quite confused, which I think is a very good hallmark of a peak horror story. So
100%.
without further ado, grab your snacks, everybody, and let's dive into this shit.
Hell yeah.
Damn straight, baby. Alright. This is I'm Blind. I'm not sure how many steps my staircase has. I've always been blind, and that's fine by me. I'm glad I never got to see and then lose my sight. That would have been too depressing. Instead, I don't get to mourn something I never had. I've lived in this Upper East Side flat for a really, really long time. As a writer, it's important for me to have my own space. I've been told my writing style is exquisite because I can't see. I focus on other senses, and my writing shines by stimulating them. I don't say a red apple. Red has no meaning for me. I say warm, firm, and sour. A bit sweet, fits in your hand, smells of grass and childhood. I'm not gonna lie, this flat was nice for a while, but really tiny. And, to be honest, I want to learn how to play the piano. Funny, I know. So naturally, since I've saved up a lot of money from my works, I bought this beautiful mansion in the suburbs. At least, that's how my friends and family called it. I don't care. I can't see it anyways. I just needed to feel the warm sunlight in the kitchen and the crisp air from my balcony while I drink my coffee in the morning and listen to the birds. And I work, day and night. People thought it would be a problem if my house had an upper floor, because, according to them, even if I lived my whole life blind, I cook, chop up things, take baths, clean the house, I apparently can't climb some damn stairs. No problem for me. Counted the steps of my staircase. 14. Eventually, I got used to it, and I even started going up and down the stairs faster, so I knew exactly how many steps I needed to climb. That's the thing when you're blind. Some movements become like reflexes. Since you live alone, you learn how to position certain things, and you can always find them in the same place. One day, however, I was going down the stairs, and I actually tripped. Where I expected the floor to be, there was this additional step. And I didn't think much of it. Figured I must have not paid attention. I mean, yes, it was odd, but after 30 years of being blind, tripping wasn't really a common thing. But I didn't look much into it. However, when I went up again, I tripped at the top. That was definitely unusual. Sure, as it was, one extra step. I went back to the stairs and counted. 15? Counted again. 14. What the fuck? Sure enough, 14 steps. Whatever, I told myself. I just shrugged it off and I went to sleep. A few days passed and I didn't trip anymore. I played it off as some error my tired mind made. Then, one night, as I went downstairs to get a glass of water, I tripped again. This time,
Hee-ho, Jack.
I really fell down onto my foot.
How are you?
That was not a skip step. There were at least 2 additional steps from what it felt like. I felt around and stood up. My foot hurt a lot, but the ankle was still good.
Good to hear.
I couldn't really stand up on it, but no serious damage. Turning back, I went back up, carefully, counting. 16. What the hell? Sure, you mess up. You count one more or one less, but two more? The house was so still, so silent. No birds, no bees, no cars passing. Normal people fear the darkness. I fear the silence. I went down the stairs again, counting. By the time I reached the bottom, I counted 14 again. I went up. 18. That was absolutely ridiculous. Was someone messing with me? How could they even mess with me like that? I've never heard of a burglar, like, breaking into someone's house and adding steps to their stairs. Still, I went to check to see if I locked the door. I could make my way around pretty neat. Went through the kitchen, then into the hallway. Then I bumped into something. Froze. My organs tensed up. Hairs stood up. I was all ears. I had never felt so much fear in my life. Decided to go on and check the door. Yeah. Locked. I was sure of it. I made my way back upstairs, and this time I didn't bump into anything. Or anyone. 18. Again. For fuck's sake. All night, all I did was go up and down, like a lunatic. Each time I got different results. Back upstairs, I decided to go down and make one final count. 14. Okay, it's probably going to be more. 15. Nope, still going. 17. 19. 21. That's a record. 27. 33. That could not be possible. 52. 88. I could feel this sense of impending doom. Something was there with me, and it was vile, disgusting, and unnatural. And this staircase was never ending. 102. I finally gave up. Whatever this was, I didn't want to reach the bottom. I went back up. The moment I turned my back to go up, I tried to be brave, but something got over me, and I ran on all fours, desperate to reach the top, desperate to run back to my bedroom, forget all of this happened, and just go to sleep, just wake up the next morning, count 14 again, and just be okay again. I don't remember how I got inside and locked my door, but I did. Now I'm sitting here and typing. This house is strange, it's eerie and disturbing. And I think if I'd gotten to the bottom of the staircase, I would have left this world. I don't think that was my house anymore. No matter what stupid, cryptic, eerie, unnatural staircase I unveiled, it's important that not only that I don't go down there, but nothing comes up either. And right now, I can hear the steps creaking. And that was, I'm blind, I'm not sure how many steps my staircase has. Ooh, it's so unnerving, because, like, of course, not many people watching or even reading these stories are blind, you know? Yeah. So, the unknowing, like, experience of what it's like to be blind, especially, like, having been blind always, and just, like, not knowing what the hell is going on with your house, just, like, what the hell could be there happening, and you can't see it because you're blind, it's fucking insane. I can't imagine how terrifying that must be.
Yeah, like, especially because you get accustomed to everything, and you go around, you know what it sounds like, you know what it feels like, you know exactly how many steps you have and everything else, you get routines out of that. You don't have the sense of sight, but you know where everything is, nothing ever moves because you don't need to move it, because you need it to remain the same. If you have sight, you can get accustomed to changes easily.
Exactly. Obviously, as soon as something is, like, out of place, when you have your sight, you fucking see it, and then you're immediately creeped out. But all manner of things could be happening when you're blind. You know? It's so
hello, Noble.
terrifying. Hi. Yes, what a fantastic story that one is. Very unnerving. Short and sweet, but it's just so that it's just like, ooh, I want more of this.
Yeah,
you know
and
as
far as I know, there's like barely any that deal with a person who's blind, but I think there's I think only one comes up. I don't remember if the character was blind. It's that one where the burglars break into like this veteran's house and they slowly get hunted by the actual veteran. I forgot what the name of that is. I don't remember if he was blind or if he was just deaf or mute.
That one is he is blind, and that movie is called Don't Breathe. It's quite good, but I do not recommend watching the sequel. It's garbage.
Yeah, I heard the sequel. The sequel was complete and absolute garbage. It only needed just one movie, only one, and that would have been more than enough. The lack of any explanation even hints to what's causing. Yeah, exactly. That's the good things about these stories.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to our next story, and this one is called "My Dog Was Lost for 3 days. What came back wasn't my dog," which is already fucking fantastic title to this. This was written 10 years ago on r/snowsleep by the user Chewing Skin, which already
based.
And surprisingly enough, this is actually one of the few stories that I have myself personally read. I read this about 5 years ago when I was just like bored out of my mind at work. Wow, what a fantastic telling of just like unease with animals, because that's the one thing amongst many things that I feel that we as humans just like have a natural fear of, that we just can't help, no matter if it's like a rabid animal, an animal that doesn't exist, or even like your childhood pet. It's animals, because you don't know what they're fucking thinking. You don't know how they feel about you. They see things all the time that you and I cannot see. They smell things, they feel things, hear things. It's so unnerving to live with an animal. A little diversion here. I remember once in my first apartment when I was about 19, 20 years old, that was about the time that I got my beloved cat, Luma. Now, me personally, I am actually a practicing satanic witch, and I value the emotional state and the vibes, I guess, that my cat picks up on. And so I was there late at night once, and I was just hanging out with my cat and things like that, and she started growling at the door to my balcony. Now, I lived on the 3rd floor of my apartment building, and she started growling. She was like all fluffed up, and I looked out, and I turned on the light. Hi, Andrew. I turned the light on, and there was nothing there. I looked around. There was nobody down there. There was like nobody on a different like balcony doing anything. There was no noises. It was quiet, you know. And she was growling, and I was like looking around, like, could there be like an animal or something? Could she just have like seen something and she was just unnerved? Turns out, next morning, after I had gotten back from my morning shift at work, I saw the cops at one of the neighboring buildings. I think it was like not this one, but like 2 down. They had found someone in there who had, you know, because their partner was like super abusive and horrible, and fucking like snapped and took out this poor person. And I'm sitting there thinking, whoa, that's crazy. That shit happened probably like last night, considering the cops were there, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm like sitting there on the balcony, and then I hear like patting at the window, and I look back, and it's Luma. as she's just sitting there, and she has kind of like this weird look on her face that I've just never really seen before, or still. And it's just, it solidifies that like mysticism and unnerving energy that animals bring with them sometimes. You can know them for all your life, be there from their birth to sadly when they pass, and you still won't understand what they see. And I love that a lot.
Yeah. Animals live in a different world.
A good horror element. Yes, exactly. And that's why I love stories like Pet Sematary. Alright. But with that being said, let's get into this story.
Yeah.
This is My Dog Was Lost for 3 days, and what came back wasn't my dog. As a kid, I was raised in a small fishing community on the eastern side of Canada, surrounded by the Gulf of St. Lawrence and the boreal forest. The entirety of the land was close to 4,000 square foot, with an even smaller number of residents sprawled out over the quote-unquote main street. The main road running straight through a little hometown, and forming houses spread widely between these areas of trees that were changed to domestic residential homes when agriculture stopped being profitable. In total, our community is surrounded by a vast expanse of ocean and seemingly endless barrage of trees that's spread over, I'd say, about 55% of Canada's entire country. I spent most of my life hunting in those woods, so you can imagine my joy when my parents got me a quote-unquote hunting dog. Sandy was a Shetland sheepdog, and while they were more fit to be herding and tracking sheep over grassy plains rather than rabbits and deer through dense forest, it didn't stop me from taking him with me on every excursion I possibly could. Sandy had been by my side for enough hunting trips that he'd grown accustomed to waking up just before breaking daylight, and on a few occasions helped me track down small game like squirrels and rabbits through considerably large forest areas. Sandy was not my property, and wasn't treated like he, quote-unquote, belonged to me. Sandy was a member of the family, my best companion, my truest friend. I think fondly back on all the times he'd sit at the front seat of my truck without being told, ready to go for a walk in whatever part of the forest I took him to. I can honestly say that there will never be a dog that will fill the void Sandy left in my life. I find that dog lovers relate to that sentiment more than others. It was October 30th, the first day of deer hunting season. I had been talking with my family about taking Sandy, my hunting gear, and some essentials to one of the cabins my grandfather owned in his heyday, off an unmarked road a few hundred miles into the wilderness for a few days. This was met with a lot of protesting, but nothing could stop me from getting in some time looking for wild game in that area that wasn't already picked clean by illegal hunters earlier in that month. Everything was packed into the blue old Ford, Sandy included, and a few hours of driving later, we were setting up camp in one of my grandfather's secluded old cabins. Here's where things got fucked up. Sandy, I'm so sorry. I had spent most of the time of my life being in the wilderness. There were only a handful of times that things had gotten weird for me, but everything can usually be explained with some kind of scientific reason. That's why I brushed off Sandy's weirdness on the first few nights, checking it up to the nervousness of a dog that's capable of hearing far-off noises of various coyotes, wolves, bears, and moose, and whatever else might be scuttling around the trees. This was untouched territory, of course. There had been plenty of time for wildlife to set up camp here, too. The first night was fairly normal. I had set up Sandy's bed in the corner of the living room, next to the TV, that looked like it came straight out of the early 90s. I figured I'd give Sandy the option to have some place to lay down for a while, despite the fact that he slept curled up with me 9 times out of 10. Close to 10 at night, Sandy looked straight at the wooden door and started whining. I just figured he needed to go piss, so I opened the door and let him out, not worried about having my best friend stray too far from me. Instead, he just sat inside the door, looking out at the forest's edge beyond the path. I too stood and looked for a few minutes before deciding he had just heard some errant critter too close to the cabin. The rest of the night was fairly normal, and Sandy slept with me just fine. The second night, I chalked up the weirdness to Sandy's stress. Early in the day, we had been walking a few miles through the woods, just beyond the house, and I thought I heard the sound of twigs snapping under something very heavy. I hoped, prayed almost it wasn't a moose, because my shotgun would not have stood a chance, but something changed in Sandy that I didn't pay close attention to at the time. He hunched himself on his hind legs, his front pressed close to the ground, his mouth pulled up over his teeth, and he growled towards nothingness. I figured we'd try hunting again later. If whatever it was had left, she should be feeling up for it, surely, but once we were inside, he didn't want to move. Even when I tried to get him to go outside to do his business, he sat on the floor and cried, wailing at me to let me know he didn't want to go out there. Of course, I didn't pressure him. If he pissed on the floor, then so be it. I would just clean it up. It's no big deal. Sandy never acted up before. I could excuse an accident or two, but if he really, really didn't want to be out there, it must have been a bear, I thought, before just locking the door and calling it a night. The third night is where things went to hell, and I still don't fully understand what happened. Sandy didn't eat all day. I managed to shoot a rabbit in the early morning when Sandy decided he didn't want to be outside any longer than he had to and retired inside for the day. Cooked it up, threw a little gravy on it, and gave it to my dog. I didn't do this all the time, but I figured now was a special occasion. Maybe a treat would put him in a better mood for another walk the next day. Sandy didn't touch it. He didn't so much as sniff at it. Instead, he sat by my side on the couch, just watching the doorway intently. Tucked him under one of my arms, and he laid his head on my lap, eyes still locked on that door. Close to 3 hours of watching grainy VHS tapes on an outdated television set, Sandy started crying again, hugging himself close to my body. This is where my judgment took me down the wrong path for the first time of many. God, it must sound so silly, being my dog's protector rather than my dog being mine, but this was my family. I figured if there was something out there that was scaring Sandy so bad, then it was my job to do something about it. I loaded up my 410, opened the door, and stood in the doorway and waited. I must have waited at least half an hour, staring into nothing. There was barely any sound, save for the faint buzz of insects and leaves rustling in the cold autumn wind. Moose aren't exactly elegant creatures, and if it were a moose, I would have heard it coming. Around the 40-minute mark, Sandy took off like a shot into the darkness beyond the trees just down the path, barking wildly. I started to get worried despite my knowledge that my dog isn't entirely helpless in the wilderness. There were still bigger animals that would have liked to take a bite out of him if there wasn't a lot of food for the winter. Sandy's bark faded away into the distance, and then stop altogether. I waited hours standing in the doorway with my shotgun cocked and ready to put down whatever it was that was waiting in the woods. I waited hours for Sandy to come back to the house, I waited until the sun was cracking through the trees, and then I waited until that night, sitting on my porch step, feigning off sleep deprivation just to see my dog come back. Sandy did come back, but not for another 3 days. Fog had rolled in at that point, and it was getting darker, the night painting the sky a navy blue. Trekking over the last few days proved futile, and I started to get worried that I needed to leave and find more provisions to last me the next few nights. But I couldn't leave Sandy up there, lost in the woods, cold and probably hungry. The thought that he might be waiting out there for me to find him and bring him back home was just distressing enough. I was packing the bag that hung on the coat rack next to the door with what I'd need for the next day's trip. I figured tomorrow would be the last day before I'd go into town and see if my father would help me find Sandy. He was a retired, graying man, but I was sure if I brought up Sandy's name, he'd be more than willing to help me search for him. Thankfully, Sandy came back before I'd even finished that train of thought. I saw him from the window on the path that led down the main road, a few dozen feet away from the house. Normally, I'd hear him scamper to the doorway and paw at the door a few times, eager to come in, but this was different. I could see the reflection of his eyes as green pearls in the murky fog that swamped the house. For a moment, I thought I might be an animal, but the outline of his body in the wisps of thick, low-lying fogs was unmistakable. Still, despite myself, I hesitated. There was something different about his body language. I stared out the window for a few more moments before reason overcame my gut instinct. Sandy could be hurt, I thought, or worse. I flung the doorway open, but he didn't come right away. Instead, he just stood there, watching me intently. And when he didn't move, I whistled to him. "Here, Sandy." I coaxed him towards the house, doing my best not to seem panicked. "Come here, boy." The way he moved was different. It was as though his hips had been dislocated. Angles of his paws changed every direction he took a step with, as though he'd forgotten how to walk properly. His head was bowed to the ground, but his teeth weren't bared. Didn't seem aggressive. The only way I could describe the look he gave me was sheepish. Like he'd just gotten into something he wasn't supposed to, and I shouted at him for it. I thought he might hurt himself, hopping up onto the elevated step if he had dislocated his hips, but he did just fine. His back half swung a little, oddly enough, and his paws almost folded underneath himself, but he didn't go sprawling. He sat on the step and didn't take his look off of me. It wasn't until I had moved from the doorway completely, opened the door wide and waited for him to walk in, that he moved. He walked right in and went straight to his bed. He didn't stop at my hand and sniff at me. Didn't wait for pets or jump up on me like he used to. He was straight to his bed, where he sat and just watched me for quite some time afterwards. I returned to the movie at hand. I called him a few times, but didn't even respond. His ears didn't so much as raise to the sound of my voice, or the pat of my hand on the old, worn-out couch beside me. I had missed my buddy, but I wasn't about to move him physically towards me. Last thing I would want to do is force him if he was feeling off. There was something about him that said I shouldn't have let him in, but I chalked it up to just silliness again, and a few hours later, I went to bed. The more I think back on it, I don't recall him blinking, even once. He sat there like a statue, and when I turned off the light, I could still see the reflection of jade green following me as I went into my room and shut the door. I could have sworn I heard him walk in the night, the sound of nails clicking against the wooden floor coming up to the door of my room, but they were slow and deliberate. They weren't like the quickness of Sandy realizing I'd gone to bed and coming to curl up. I heard the noises stop outside of my bedroom, but I didn't hear his whine. I thought nothing of it and fell into a deep but uneasy sleep. When I woke in the morning, I figured it must have been a dream. Sandy was still sitting in the upright position I left him when I went to bed. It was as though he didn't move a muscle the entire night, and when I said good morning, he didn't so much as wag his tail. He did follow me into the kitchen, but he paused at the doorway when I put his bowl down on the floor and filled it up with some supermarket dog food. Once again, his back half moved weirdly as he slowly made his way towards me. There was a nagging feeling that something was off-putting about the way he looked that day. Like he had gotten a little longer over the night, somehow. Sandy hunched down again, when he was walking to the door the night before. He didn't come into the kitchen. I figured he must have been hungry being out in the woods and such for so long, but he eyed me like he was waiting for me to come a little closer rather than touch the food. Goes without saying, but after a few moments of a staring contest between me and my unblinking dog, I called off that foolishness and called his name loudly. Not even a flinch. I didn't want to move closer to my dog to leave the kitchen door, but this was my Sandy. My Sandy. And the most damage he'd ever done was eat flies. Sure enough, as I passed him, he turned and his body swayed unnaturally. But he didn't move towards me. When I left that day, I couldn't find anything. The deer tracks in the mud were made a few days prior, but went cold off naturally made trails through the woods. I couldn't even hear bugs or birds or even the howl of a coyote nearby. The only sounds for miles away from the campsite were my own breathing and the sound of crunching leaves underneath my feet. When the sun started to set, I started to make my way back, but I should have just packed my shit there and left. Just behind a cluster of trees, with the house just visible beyond the rise, I figured I found the reason why the animals had abandoned this place. Generally, when there are mass animal deaths in a forest, that usually means something is wrong in the area of the slaughter, and the wildlife are usually smart enough to get the hell out of Dodge. Even cats are bred instinctively not to like drinking from water that is close to where their food is, because if you saw a dead animal close to a stream, you'd figure the stream was tainted and find another water source. Hundreds of squirrels were disemboweled and strewn across the grass in a almost perfect circle. Most of them were skinned alive, but when I turned to heave up all the contents in my stomach, there were a few dozen that were inside out. I couldn't help but vomit repeatedly as I tried my best to walk around the circle of tiny organs and mashed up bodies. Not just over the site, but the smell was ungodly. I don't know how long they had been out there, but if I had stumbled across this sooner, I would have left with Sandy until immediately after. Gradually, the body stopped and delved off into a random dead squirrel here and there. The biggest thing I managed to find, just a few feet off the unholy feeding ground, was a deer. It looked as though something had decided to skin it alive from hide to neck and drape some of the skin over a branch like someone was tanning the hide. I don't know how long it had been up there, and it smelled like it had been dead for quite some time. Despite the fact that there wasn't a single fucking fly around. The head had been cut clean off, just above the shoulders, and when I realized the organs had been removed, I moved from a walking pace through the forest to a jog. Thankfully, the cabin wasn't too far off. I heaved one final time, wiped my mouth off on the back of my hand. I looked up to the house to see Sandy standing there and watching me from the window. I tried to reason with myself and tell myself Sandy's odd behavior could have just been trauma. I know it's stupid to think of it now, but at the time, it was the only reasonable explanation. I had to keep myself from going insane right then. The elongating body could have just been the loneliness getting to me. Sandy had realized there was something up with this place, and the second he noticed it, I should have taken this warning and just taken off back into town. Once this door was shut behind me, I started packing the food and essentials back into boxes, moving quickly to try and get my things into the truck before night came. It'd be dangerous to try and maneuver my way through the trails at night, as the hills off Kelly's Mountain were steep and in pitch darkness, with only my companion being my headlights. It would have been easy to slide off a ravine and just never be heard from again. I didn't want to stay one more night, but I had no choice. I had gotten back to the house just moments before the sun finally receded past the horizon, and we were bathed in a navy blue sky once again. I didn't pay attention to Sandy. He just sat at his bed and watched me pack. I figured no harm, no foul. I'd throw his stuff into the truck in the morning, and we'd be back into town before night the next day. Glancing at him for just a moment, it was a passing thought that he was looking a little longer today. And when I went to bed, it was a hard time getting to sleep for the next few hours. It must have been close to 4 or 5 in the morning when I heard it. The sound of whistling. The same whistle I used to call my dog. I broke out in a cold sweat when I realized that whoever slaughtered those squirrels, hung the skin up, left what he didn't need, could have very well broken into my house. The door to my room didn't make a sound as I opened it slowly, thankfully. I waited a moment, listening to someone call my dog for a few more seconds before I dared poke my head out from the door frame to get a good look at and whoever it was that could have hurt Sandy. The outside door was open. All I saw was the back half of Sandy, too long and lankied, almost coiled around the back of the door. His front half was outside. Whatever it was that had impersonated my dog was whistling slowly, calling for Sandy. I could have sworn that it had hunched down to the ground again, It said, Sandy, in the most ungodly voice I'd ever fucking heard. I closed the door just as softly as I opened it. I don't know how long I waited till I saw the sun break over the horizon. I knew I left my gun in the bag on the coat rack, but there wasn't much I could do. I waited some more, and until it must have been midday, I finally got the balls to open the door again and make a break for the truck. I would not die in that place. Sandy was gone, and the door was open. His food was untouched, but the fridge was open, and all the meat was gone. I didn't bother packing his stuff. Just threw my bag over my shoulder, made my way to the fort as fast as I could, and turned on the ignition. I can't describe the feeling that overcame me as I realized I'd have to leave Sandy in this place. The thought that he could be dead was never a thought in my mind. I didn't think I could cope with the knowledge that whatever I allowed in my house, whatever disemboweled those animals, it could have done the same with him. I made my way down the winding paths and roads as fast as I possibly could without veering off the cliffs. I felt like I was turning in circles down this labyrinth that would take me back to that house, but when I reached the pavement on this stretch of road back to town, I felt relief wash over me, thinking I was safe. Just as I was pulling off onto the cement, I felt something hard hit the back windshield, sending broken glass into the passenger seat. I only got a glimpse of the deer's decapitated head catching on unbroken glass and tumbling into the back seat. I cried for most of the way home, hands clenching the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. I wish I could leave this off on a positive note. Fuck. I wish I could tell you that I found Sandy at home, waiting for me. I wish I could tell you that that was the end of it. A traumatizing experience in the woods that I'll never get over without copious therapy. Last night, I found it hard to sleep. I kept replaying the entirety of my trip to Kelly's Mountain in my head. I figured I couldn't sleep for a while and laid there, listening to the wind through my open window. Could have sworn I heard the whistle I used to call my dog with, coming from the forest's edge. If you go on trips with your dog, I advise that you don't let them out of your sight for too long. What comes back might not be your dog. And that was, my dog was lost for 3 days, and what came back
Fucking hell.
Oof. 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 Heavy. Heavy.
Holy fuck. That was a good one.
That was a great one. Wowee.
Jesus
Wowee,
fucking
wow.
Christ.
Yeah, wow. As somebody who has lived in a more rural part of a place surrounded by like lots of forest, ooh, I know exactly what it's like. That unnerving feeling of just like there might be something out there with you. And that story captures it perfectly.
I know, right?
God, what a freaky story.
Yeah,
I know.
We've always, in my family, we've always had dogs, multiple different types. We've had collies, we've had shepherds, we have all kinds of dogs that we've had. And my grandpa had a bunch of good dogs. They were such good fucking dogs. And we used to go to a cabin that our family had, like far up north. And there was a lake. Of course, there was what the fuck do you call them? The summer cottages of those fucking like Christian camp. It was a Christian camp basically that was across the lake, and in the middle there was like the small island that we would fish on usually. And my grandpa always had like he always let our dog just run off and just have fun, like near in the area, and he would never really run that far, because when my grandpa, he had a little trick that he always used to call the dog back. He would walk up to his car, open the door, the dog would immediately sprint back, no matter what. And thinking about like a dog just running off into the forest like that and just disappearing, and you didn't even go after it. Fucking hell! I wanted to punch the author.
Ooh, jeez, it's so like, cause when you are reading this, and at the time you're thinking like, oh yeah, I would never do such a thing. At the same time, it's almost like. What can you do? You know?
Yeah, because when we're reading it, it's easy to be that armchair like dude and just pass judgment on the dude. But in this situation, you're like, your dog's acting weird. You have a shotgun. You're already looking into the freaking forest, like, what the fuck's going on? And then your dog just bolts off, and you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly, bro. Like, there isn't much that you can do, because realistically, a dog is faster, you know? And
it's
when
middle
you
of the
get
night.
there, you never really. It's middle of the night, and realistically, when you get there, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
What's gonna happen if you actually do find something there?
Yeah, and the dude already said he has a shotgun. Thank you. I'm not. What a fucking name of a follow. Big anime girl boobies. What the fuck? Thank you.
Thank you for the follow.
I guess.
Thanks.
But yeah, like the dude said, he had a shotgun, but it's not gonna do anything if there's a moose. So anything that's bigger than a moose, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. There isn't a damn thing you can do, bro.
Exactly. Fucking hell.
Oh boy. Alright, well, fucking surprise! I have another story for you guys, because I'm not gonna lie, I didn't realize those were a little bit short, so I quickly ran over to the fucking Creekcast channel. I found one of their hour-ish videos, and I got an extra story for you guys.
Hell yeah, let's
Might
go.
have some more r/short scary stories, but we shall see. Now this one is called "My Wife Has Been Peeking at Me from Around Corners and from Behind Furniture."
And I bet
It's
you do
gone
like
from
them.
weird to terrifying.
Oh god.
Now this is a type of story that falls in line to the like popular like myth of mimics, you know? Because like even today I've seen TikToks and stuff of people supposedly encountering mimics in their house. They'll hear things like voices, ringtones. I heard it once mimicking an animal that had like passed away a couple of months before, and just like hearing unnatural things in your house and stuff. And I think that level of like unnervingness in a place like your own home just elevates the scare even more, because that is the one place that you feel the safest, is in your home. And when there's something weird and freaky going on in your home, that oof, it's extra terrifying.
Yeah, it's like Prey.
Yes, exactly. It is like that. Or what is another really good one? It is like The Strangers Prey at Night. Oh man, because if I recall, in the first one, The Strangers, there is a scene where the lady is standing in her kitchen, and is a long shot peering into the kitchen with like a dark hallway behind her, and you can't see it on a first pass through of the movie, but when you look back at it a second time, one of these strangers is already inside of her fucking house, standing back there. It's super fucking terrifying. Cause, like, again, obviously, you feel safest in your own home. That's your domicile, your own dominion. It's one of the few things in this world that you can actually control. So to have your space invaded by someone, or even worse, something, is beyond terrifying.
Hell yeah.
That sort of shit always, like, gets me really bad. Because, I used to live in, a really old house, and it would make all kinds of noises, and my mom would just be like, "Oh, it's nothing, stop being paranoid."
It's just
But,
the
like,
house
obviously,
making
when you're a
sounds.
kid,
It's old and everything.
Yeah.
There's
The
no
house
monsters
is
underneath your
settling.
bed.
For real. But I do like horror that, like, delves into, oh, there's something in your house.
Yeah.
So that will be very cool for this story. Alright. Now this is, my wife has been peeking at me from around corners. My wife, Lynn, and I have been together for 6 years and married for 11 months. Our entire history together has been very normal, and never once have I noticed anything weird in terms of behavior or things like red flags in her. I can't stress enough how out of character this whole thing has been for her. Lynn is a very kind, intelligent, and thoughtful woman. She's always been the no-nonsense type of person. Being childish or trying to scare me is not something she'd normally do. She doesn't even like watching horror movies. When we first started dating, she agreed to watch The Shining with me because she knew how much I loved horror. She was so scared that she didn't even make it halfway through the movie before we had to just turn it off. She isn't into anything creepy and has never been into pranks. It's just not her cup of tea, and that's fine. But what's so strange about this, it's just so unlike her. I should also add that she never had any mental health issues, and as far as I'm aware, it doesn't run in her family. I know some people are able to hide their mental health problems, but in the 6 years we've been together, I think I'd have seen some sort of sign or something. 2 months ago, when I was in the kitchen making myself some coffee before work, I was running a bit late that morning and knew I wouldn't be able to make it to a coffee shop for my local fix. So I just made myself some coffee at home, took a sip as I hurried down the hall towards the front door, when I hadn't been to notice Lynn peeking at me from around the corner ahead of me. I could only see her eyes and a strand of her long, dark hair hanging against the wall. The rest of her body was concealed behind the corner. I nearly spilled my coffee when I saw her. I did burn the shit out of my lips, though. Jeez, Lynn, I said, wiping a few drops of coffee from my pants. You scared the shit out of me. She immediately popped out of view like a little kid that had been caught. I heard her straying off towards the living room, and by the time I got to the front door, she was out of sight. It was really weird and just totally out of character for her, like I said, but I also found it kind of funny that she was being a bit more playful and a little less serious. I shouted to her through the house that I loved her and called her a weirdo. As I shut the door behind me, I could hear her laughing. Her behavior was a bit odd, but it certainly wasn't something to call a priest over or anything like that. I forgot about it by lunch, and by the time I got home, she was her normal self again. I didn't bother bringing it up, and she didn't either. and life went on. The next incident happened 3 days later. It was around 2 a.m., and I had woken up to get a drink. I was standing at the kitchen island, jug of OJ in hand, and felt a strong feeling that I was being watched. For whatever reason, I looked down at the floor and saw my wife's smiling face staring back at me. She was peeking at me from the other side of the island, staring up at me with wide, unblinking eyes and grinning like a manic cat. I screamed, I'll admit it, not out of irritation, but fear. For some reason, at that moment, I was genuinely scared. At the sound of my scream, Lynn scuttled backwards out of my view, her hands and feet smacking the tile floor as she hurried out of the kitchen on all fours. I didn't run after her, or even yell after her. I just stood there, frozen in shock, wondering just what in the fuck had possessed her to do that. It took me a little longer than I'd like to admit to go back upstairs, but I eventually did. When I got to our bedroom, Lynn was lying on her side, completely asleep. Or at least pretending to be, maybe. I stood there for a while, watching her breathing to be sure she really was asleep. I had the feeling she might jump out at me. That moment, I got into bed, but she didn't. I climbed into bed and she didn't even move. Her breathing was soft and deep, and I started to wonder if I dreamt the whole thing. The next morning, I waited for her to come down for coffee. After handing her a mug and kissing her cheek, I decided to ask her about it. What was that about last night? I asked, keeping my tone light so I didn't offend her, embarrass her. She frowned over her cup of coffee, shaking her head like she had no clue what I was referring to. You were peeking at me again. From over there, I said, pointing to the spot on the floor by the kitchen island. She followed my gaze, and when she looked back at me, she burst out laughing. She laughed so hard that I couldn't help but join her. You creep me the fuck out sometimes, you know that? I said. She giggled and set her cup on the counter and wrapped her arms around my neck. Well, you creep me out all the time, so I guess we're even, she teased. We said our goodbyes and left for work. As I drove, I kept thinking about how creepy it had been seeing her grinning at me from behind the island like that. Sounds her hands made on the floor as she crawled away. I told myself she was just trying to be silly. Just trying to join me in my love of all things horror, I guess. It's not like I was afraid of her, but it still didn't sit right with me. I started seeing her peek at me more and more. Sometimes she'd be peeking out from behind the couch or living room curtains. Once she even managed to get inside her grandmother's old trunk that sits at the foot of our bed. I might not even known she was there at all, had the trunk's old hinges not given her away. She had the lid propped up just enough so that only half of her face peeked through. She'd be grinning like an excited toddler. It was unnerving. I didn't even know what to say to her. All I could do was stare. When I finally found my voice, I asked her why on earth she was doing this. She didn't answer, but she had slowly closed the lid, shutting herself inside the trunk. I just walked away, feeling disturbed. I didn't understand why she was doing it, but clearly it made her happy. I just hoped she would tire of the game quickly. Lynn didn't peek at me for the next 2 weeks. I started to think she was done with her weird prank, and frankly, I was relieved. We were watching a show on Netflix one night, and I jokingly said that I hadn't seen her peeking at me lately, and that she must have given up on her spy game. She looked up at me with a small smile and said, "Maybe I've just gotten better at it." I didn't say anything, but I wondered whether or not she was joking. For the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about what she said. Was she still peeking at me when I wasn't looking and I just hadn't noticed? And if so, what the hell was she getting out of this? I started to feel paranoid, constantly checking whether she was watching me or from around a corner or just behind a door. I was jumpy whenever I was home and she was in full view of me. I felt stupid and honestly a little crazy. But after a few weeks without another incident, I began to relax. I stopped checking behind furniture and walls and told myself that was just a bad memory. And then, a few days ago, things got so much worse. Lynn left to go to a friend's, and I lounged on the couch and played a couple games on my laptop. Around 9 p.m., I hopped into the shower, and as I was washing the soap from my hair, I felt that awful feeling that I was being watched. I slowly opened my eyes and almost had a fucking heart attack. Lynn was peeking from behind the shower curtain. Her entire head stretched into the shower, just leaving her body outside. Her long, dark hair hung against the curtain, the ends dripping with water. Her mouth hung open in a terrible grin, eyes wide and red as if she had been blinking in a while. I screamed and jumped back against the wall. She didn't move, nor did her smile waver. Her makeup ran down her cheeks in 2 black streaks. She looked giddy and completely deranged. I was fucking terrified. I stood like that for a few moments. Neither was saying a word. Finally, after what felt like forever, she slowly pulled her head back out of the shower, and I watched her blurry figure through the curtain as she moved backwards toward the bathroom door. A second later, the bathroom door slammed shut, hard enough to rattle the mirror. I screamed again and jumped out of the shower to lock the door. I stayed inside the bathroom for over an hour. Maybe I overreacted to some of you, but joke or not, I wasn't gonna put up with the crazy shit anymore. That's why I kept telling myself as I paced in my bathroom, stopping to listen at the door every few minutes. Suddenly I heard a muffled sound and pressed my ear against the bathroom door, straining to listen. I couldn't hear anything, but I envisioned Lynn standing on the other side of the door, giggling at her joke. I felt a surge of anger. I was beyond pissed at being made to feel scared in my own home and made to hide in the bathroom for a fucking hour. And all for what? Some joke? If it was a joke, it was a damn awful one. What the fuck, Lynn? I snapped. This shit is getting really fucking annoying. I waited for her to apologize or to call me a jerk, but instead I heard a faint moan. So quiet I wondered if I heard it at all, and then complete silence. Lynn? I called out, not able to even hide the shakiness in my voice. I got no response, just my own heavy breathing. I swear to God, just fucking stop! I yelled as my fist was pounding on the door. I waited for her to cuss me out. Something I would expect from me talking to her like that. I never screamed at her before. But there was nothing. Just the occasional drip from the shower head. I won't deny that I was scared. Too afraid to open the damn door and face my own wife. I waited another 30 minutes or so, which feels like a fucking lifetime when you're scared. Finally decided I wasn't going to spend a night hiding in my bathroom, so I got down on my knees and peered under the door. I almost expected to see her face peeking back at me, but thankfully I didn't. I could see straight down the hallway to the top of the stairs, but no Lynn. I didn't know if I should be happy about that or not. I looked for a few minutes, waiting to see her head pop up over the step, but it never came. I stood up, my hand hovering over the door. I mentally prepared myself to open it. I slowly turned the lock with shaky fingers and was about to yank it open when I heard a sound that still makes me feel nauseous when I think about it. A moan, louder than before, but this time I was able to tell just where it was coming from. I turned my head to the closet door as if in slow motion, and locked eyes with my wife, who was peeking out from me from the slight gap. Her eyes still wide as ever, and her mouth was hanging open in the most grotesque, gaping smile I'd ever seen. I didn't even scream. I was too scared for that. Her hands were clasped to her chest, body trembling with a sheer delight, as if she could barely contain her excitement. A raspy moan bubbled up from her throat, deep and raw, sending a shiver through my entire body. Somehow, I found the ability to pull the bathroom door open, and I ran as fast as I could all the way down the steps, snagging my keys and phone from the table in the living room before running outside to my car. I could hear her shrill laughter behind me, but I didn't hear her getting closer. I didn't bother shutting the front door. I drove away from the house faster than I legally should have, shivering the entire time, either from fear or the cold. Maybe a little bit of both. I hadn't grabbed a coat or even a pair of shoes. I was still in my boxers and my hair was still damp. I drove straight to my brother's house, about 40 minutes away, ignoring any and every call and text I got. I didn't check my phone until I was safely parked in my brother's driveway. Lynn had called 4 times and sent a flurry of texts, all wondering where I'd gone and why I left, quote, like that. Threw my phone on the dash in rage, furious at her nonchalant attitude. My brother, Chris, and his wife were surprised to see me, and especially dressed in just a pair of boxers, but told me to stay as long as I needed. Chris lent me some clothes and asked me what happened. I told him Lynn and I had a fight, but I didn't get into the details. I didn't want him thinking I was overreacting, leaving my wife over a prank, even if it was a strange one. I mean, hadn't I encouraged her for years to lighten up instead of being so serious all the time? I wanted her to relax and loosen up, but this was definitely not what I had in mind. I tried to sleep on their sofa, but my brain just wouldn't let me sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lynn's face staring at me from inside the closet. Knowing she'd been in there with me the entire time made my skin crawl. She never left the fucking bathroom at all. Instead, she slept inside the closet and slammed the bathroom door shut to fool me. The mere thought of going back home gave me anxiety. I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Chris ended up giving me a sleeping pill, so I was able to get at least a little rest. My sleep was filled with terrible dreams, all of Lynn's smiling face. I woke up just as the sun started to rise. My sore body ached from the sofa, and I felt drained. I knew I'd have to call Lynn at some point, but I didn't know what to say to her. I wouldn't be going home unless she gave me her word that she'd never do any more creepy shit. I just wanted my wife back. Her normal, serious self never looked so good to me. I was contemplating calling her and telling her that when that feeling, that oh so familiar feeling came back over me. I was being watched. I was staring at the ceiling, my heart in my throat. I didn't want to look away, but the longer I ignored the feeling, the worse it got. My eyes drifted away from the ceiling, almost on their own. And there I saw it. Her face was pressed up against the window beside the couch, staring down at me with that same gaping smile. Drool dribbled down from her lips, leaving 2 long streaks down the glass. I didn't know how long she had been there, but something told me she'd been there a while, possibly all night. I didn't bother screaming, though I was afraid anger trumped my fear. Any and all fear that I felt at that moment. I jumped up from the couch and pounded on the glass with my palm. Lynn, are you crazy? What the hell is wrong with you? Just go home! I shouted. Now! She didn't move, and her ghastly expression never changed. If anything, her smile only grew, as if she had never been more elated. I could hear Chris and his wife moving around upstairs, as if Lynn could hear them from her place outside. Her head twitched slightly in their direction. She began to close her mouth slowly. Chris called my name from upstairs, obviously concerned. I turned to see him and his wife Rebecca hurrying down the steps. I turned back to the window, and Lynn was gone. The only sign she'd been there at all was the 2 streaks of drool still dribbling down the glass. I tried explaining to Chris and Rebecca about waking up to see Lynn watching me through their window. They were obviously skeptical. Who wouldn't be? Chris and I went outside to the spot in front of the window, but there were no footprints in the dirt, just a slight indent. Animal, probably, Chris guessed, but I didn't argue. He and Rebecca assumed I dreamt the entire episode, but they didn't understand. And I was just too tired to explain it to them. I called out of work that day and turned my cell off. I just didn't want to face Lynn. Just talking to her was too much for me at that point. I really started to believe something was irreversibly wrong with her. No matter what promises she made, we'd never be the same again. Thought saddened me, my core. I cried most of the morning. By noon, I figured I was ready to confront her. Give her one last chance to explain herself. Could at least give her that after 6 years, I told myself. I turned my phone on and saw dozens of texts that she had sent, all seemingly from a concerned wife. Can we talk? I love you. Please, call me. I'm really worried. Can you answer? Please, just come home. I miss you. All more and more of the same. All text telling me she loved me. She wanted me home. How worried she was. Not a damn one addressing the crazy shit she'd pulled. Like she hadn't been acting like a character from a Stephen King book. Even her texts seemed different. She normally texted novels just to tell me to pick up a loaf of bread. You'd think she'd have more to say to me after her bizarre shenanigans, but no, just these weird, almost stuttering messages. Never more than a sentence, but still just unnerving, all the same. I know it probably seemed childish to some of you who are miles away from this situation, but if you saw the way Lynn had looked at me, how she scampered away on all fours like some wild animal, grinning at me from inside the closet like a fucking lunatic, then I think you'd find my reaction was warranted. I ended up staying with Chris and Rebecca for another night. I didn't wake up yesterday until after noon, and thankfully I did see Lynn's face staring at me through the window again. I don't want to pry because it's not my place, but is this fight something that can be mended? Rebecca asked. She'd made us both a sandwich for lunch, and I knew she wanted to breach the subject without seeming too nosy. I don't know. She seems like a different person altogether, I said, choosing my words carefully. I still wasn't ready for her, or even Chris, to know the full extent of the batshit craziness I'd been dealing with. People change, Ben. She's still the same woman you married. Maybe you both need to just talk through your issues. Whatever's going on, I'm sure it can be fixed, she said, ever the peacemaker. I think it's beyond that now. I don't think talking would help. I just don't feel like I can trust her, I said. Words stung my heart. I missed and loved my wife, but how could I live with someone like that? Living in constant fear didn't sound too appealing. Lynn loves you too. She has to be absolutely crushed, she said. I don't know about that, I replied. Well, she certainly seemed like it to me. I've never seen her so upset. Very much unlike the Lynn I know, Rebecca said, shaking her head sadly. It took a full minute for her words to really sink in, and when they did, I felt dread worming its way through my skin. Wait, what do you mean? You saw her? You saw Lynn? I asked, my mouth suddenly dry. Rebecca nodded casually, as if that fact wasn't nightmare fuel. Maybe for her it wasn't. She stopped by this morning, just after Chris left for work, she said, cleaning the plates from the table. I didn't see her car, though. Maybe she took an Uber or something. Beck, what did she say? Did she come inside? I asked, sweat starting to break out on my forehead. I began looking around, examining a corner as if a predator was lurking behind them. No. She just asked if you're awake yet, and I said that you weren't. I asked if she wanted me to wake you, but she said no. Just said to let you sleep, she said as she washed the dishes. That's all? She didn't say anything else? I asked. No. She looked awful, though. Like she hadn't slept in days. I really think you should call her. I got up from the table and thanked Rebecca for lunch. I felt a little bit better at the knowledge that at least she hadn't come inside. Still, I needed to double check that the doors were locked. I sat for a while, trying to figure out what to do next. I didn't want to go home, but I felt that I owed it to Lynn to help her if I could. And I swore an oath to love and honor her through sickness and in health. And clearly, she was very sick. If she was sick, which I truly believed she was, I had to try and get her the help that she needed. But I didn't even know where to start. I didn't want to call the police, and besides, what the hell was I going to tell them? That my wife was peeking at me? She was being creepy? As bizarre as she had been, she still hadn't committed any crime. Not yet, anyway. The police would have said that I was just overreacting. This wasn't some prank. It felt wrong. Dangerous, even. Like something sinister was lurking beneath her smile. I knew, as her husband, I was well within my rights to have her committed, but if she simply acted normal, what if she... I just didn't know what to do. She'd obviously been able to fool Rebecca into thinking she was just a concerned wife. As long as the doctors didn't find her a danger to herself or others, they'd have no choice but to release her after 72 hours. I felt lost and overwhelmed. So I did what any husband in my position would do. I called her mother. I didn't want to, believe me. Her mother, Marianne, and I were never on the best of terms. We never fought or anything like that, but she just wasn't a very warm person and wasn't really easy to get along with. She hardly ever smiled, and when she did, only her lips would move into a thin-lipped smile, leaving her eyes as blank as before. She gave off this aura that she was permanently on the offensive, like she just needed to keep everyone away. I'd only met her twice, and both times were for such short visits. I got the impression she didn't approve of me for her daughter. Lynn always ushered us out quickly, and she didn't want me to feel uncomfortable, which I was grateful for. Being in her mother's company felt almost unbearable, like walking on glass. I was glad when we moved 3 states away, so we didn't have to see her often. I was happy to avoid the woman, but right now I needed her help. I really didn't want to talk to her at all, but I had to talk to someone, and someone who knew Lynn better than I did. So I grit my teeth and did what I had to do. Yes? She answered, already sounding irritated. Marianne, it's me, Ben. Do you have a minute to talk? I asked. I could hear her cluck her tongue in irritation. I'm in the middle of writing some checks, but if you insist, I suppose I can spare a moment. What is it that you want to discuss, Benjamin? She said coolly. It's about Lynn. She's been acting strangely, and I was wondering if you had any idea whether there was something. I was quickly interrupted. It's a bit difficult to follow your rambling, Benjamin. What is it that you want from me? I asked. I could almost hear her standing there in her thin sweater and slacks, tapping her fingernails impatiently on the table. I wanted to know if you've ever noticed any odd behavior or any possible mental health issues, I asked. There was a long, uncomfortable pause that I couldn't tell was just because she was thinking or something else. Finally, after a few seconds, she spoke. I'm not sure if this is one of your jokes, Benjamin. But if so, I don't find the humor in it. Now, I do have business to attend to, as I've said, so if you don't mind, she said, but I cut her off before she could get rid of me. Marianne, this isn't a joke. I'm sincerely concerned about Lynn's mental health. Her behavior has been very erratic lately. I'm worried about her, and I figured as her mother, you would be as well, I said, and my frustration evident in my voice. If you're truly concerned, then I suggest you get the health professionals involved. I don't know what you expect of me, she snapped. I could tell she was seconds away from hanging up, and for some reason I was desperate not to let her. I had the feeling she knew a lot more than she was letting on. Please, if not for me, do it for Lynn, I tried. I heard a faint, shaky intake of breath, as if she were trying to hold her steely persona together, but failing. Marianne, what's wrong? Benjamin, I don't know what to tell you. My only advice is to seek professional help. Do not call here again. Goodbye. I tried to call out to her, but she hung up. I tried to wrap my head around the call and her refusal to even help me. Even if she didn't like me, why wouldn't she want to help her own daughter? I couldn't help feeling so fucking confused. I just couldn't understand what she was hiding from me. I tried to replay the conversation, desperate to find something I'd missed. After a while, I almost gave up. Until I remembered her last words to me. Seek professional help, she'd said, those words with a bit of urgency. I could have just been grasping at straws, but no. It was her voice. I was sure her voice had changed ever so slightly when she'd said that, as if they were very important. What had she meant? I assumed that she'd been referring to medical professionals, but maybe she was referring to someone else? Someone that she didn't, for some reason, feel comfortable saying directly. Maybe I was just desperate. I waited for Chris to get home, and after a very long and exhausting conversation with him and Rebecca, I convinced them that Lynn truly needed psychiatric help. I didn't tell them everything. I wasn't prepared to go into it yet, but I told them about our last encounter, how she had hidden in the bathroom and was peeking at me from the closet. They were obviously shocked, but thankfully they believed me. They too just wanted to help her. Still, they didn't think it was all that serious. Weird, maybe, but not dangerous. They just kept saying that Lynn had to be playing some kind of weird joke. Maybe for YouTube? Rebecca offered, only half-heartedly. Chris didn't think we should involve the police just yet. He offered instead to go with me, and I readily accepted. He reasoned that just calmly talking to her, trying to coax her into going willingly, was the best recourse. I agreed to do this his way. At least, I wouldn't be going into the house alone. We drove over this morning, just after breakfast. There was no way I was going at night. When we pulled into the driveway, my stomach began doing somersaults. Her car was there, but I still didn't let down my guard. The front door was ajar, and for a split second I thought we'd see her eyes staring through the gap. I was shaking and starting to sweat. Chris, however, was just fine. He waited for me to open the door, his hands in his pocket like he was going on a fucking stroll through the park. I envied his ignorance. Pushed the door open and was immediately hit with the stench of rot. Chris smelled it too, and he walked in the house behind me, his nose scrunched up. What do you guys use to clean the floors around here? Shit? Chris mumbled. Shut up, I said. He's darting around for any signs of Lynn. The house was deadly quiet and dark despite it being 10 in the morning. All the curtains were closed up tight, refusing to allow any sunlight inside. If I hadn't just left it 2 days prior, I'd thought the house to be abandoned. We moved through each room, carefully checking any place where she might hide, occasionally calling out her name. Why the fuck are you looking under the couch? Chris asked eventually. Aren't we looking for your wife? He was looking at me like I was a moron. Let's just go upstairs, I whispered. He shook his head, but followed me up the stairs to check the bathroom and spare bedroom. On the way up, my shoes crunched over pieces of glass that looked to be littered over a few of the steps. I noticed that one of Lynn and my wedding portraits that hung on the wall along the staircase had been smashed. The frame hung crookedly, all the glass removed. I stared at the picture, a lump forming in my throat. We had taken the photo just after leaving the church, after saying our vows. She looks so beautiful in her white gown. I looked at Lynn's beautiful face. I've never dreamed her face would be a source of terror for me. We climbed the rest of the steps and checked the spare bedroom, but it looked completely untouched. I was hesitant to go into the bathroom, my fear from that night coming back to me all at once. Chris noticed and offered to go in by himself, but I just couldn't let him do that, so we walked in together, checking the closet and the shower. The bathroom looked as if it hadn't been touched since the night I left. I don't think she's here, Ben. Why don't you pack some clothes and we'll try coming back tomorrow or something, Chris said. I nodded and went into our bedroom and shoved some clothes into a duffel bag. When I checked inside our closet, I came across the source of the smell and gagged. Chris took one look and lost all color in his face. He had to go stand by the stairs to get away from the sight and the smell. I gazed down in shock at what lay inside my bedroom closet. Soaking into the rug were at least a dozen eyeballs, all carefully laid out in pairs. Some were as large as a quarter, while others were as tiny as a marble. I stared down at the eyes she had collected from small animals and wondered how in the fuck she had gotten them. I shuddered at the thought. Man, I thought it bad with Becca's shoe addiction, but fuck me. Your wife's in here collecting fucking eyeballs, Chris said, gagging. Man, I think we should go, he called from the hall. I'm getting fucking nauseous out here. Alright, I said, grabbing my duffel and shutting the door on my new nightmare. I stepped out into the hall and took a deep breath of air. I could taste the rot on my tongue and couldn't help but gag. Who the fuck lines up eyeballs in their closet like that? Chris mumbled. I tried to tell you that she needs help, I said. She doesn't need help, and she needs a fucking exorcist. You coming or what? I can't stand the smell of any... The words died in his throat and his eyes grew wide with fear. I didn't ask him why. I could feel it. Someone was watching me, and I didn't think it was the eyes in the closet. I turned around slowly, scanning the bedroom. Christ, I whispered, as I finally saw what we'd missed. Under the bed, curled on her side, watching us with the excitement of a kid on Christmas morning, was my wife. She held her hands together, just under her chin. They were shaking eagerly. Now that she knew she'd been found, I could hear the quiet noises she was making. Sort of hiccuping sound in her throat, as if the excitement was just too much for her. It was unnerving, to say the least. Wide eyes, and that same huge smile. Everything told me to run, but I forced it away. This was my wife. No matter how twisted she was, still the woman I married. I had to help her. Lynn, I said softly, but she didn't respond. Her head bobbed back and forth in two quick little movements, as if she were nodding. Baby, I just want to help, okay? Can you let me do that? I asked. I'd taken a single step forward, approaching her like she was some kind of dangerous animal. I love you, Lynn, I said softly, taking another step closer. She let a tiny moan escape her wide mouth, and I had the urge to resist the urge to run. Her shoulders were starting to quiver, and her eyes grew as large as saucers. I crouched down so I could see her better. Immediately saw the blood. Her hands were covered in it. They trembled more that I got closer, as if she was just barely able to contain herself. Lynn, are you hurt? You're bleeding, I said. She bobbed her head again. Her bloody fingers moved up and down as if playing an invisible piano. They occasionally grazed her chin, leaving smears of blood on her skin. I wanted to recoil in disgust. The smell that was coming off of her was revolting. I could feel the vomit trying to climb up my throat. Her lips were dry and stretched thin, blood seeping between the cracks. I knew she wouldn't come out on her own, but I didn't want to leave her in the state she was in. I scooted closer and reached out to her. The excited hiccuping sounds got louder, and her hands shook, fingers flexing. It was then I could see the blood oozing from in between her fingers. Oh my god, Lynn, you're bleeding, I said. Instinctively, I reached out to take her hand, but before I could even touch her, her hand sprang out towards me. A sharp pain shot up through my arm, and I fell back on my ass. My arm burned, and I could see blood dripping onto the carpet. I looked back at her in shock. She was grinning madly, her fingers clutching a large shard of glass. "You all right in there?" Chris asked from behind me. I turned my head slightly and nodded to him, cradling my arm to my chest. When I turned back to face Lynn, I saw that her focus had shifted. She wasn't looking at me anymore, and she wasn't smiling either. She was staring past me, her eyes glaring at Chris the way a hungry lion might stare at an antelope. Her mouth was still hanging open, but it was twisted into a snarl. I got to my feet and began walking backwards down the hall, afraid to take my eyes off of her. "Are you bleeding?" Chris asked. The moment the words left his mouth, Lynn started fast scooting out from under the bed, glass shards still in her fist. "Chris, run! Go!" I yelled. He must have been too afraid to move, because a second later, I felt my back bump into him. He was still standing at the top of the stairs, staring at the horror that was my wife. Lynn had crawled completely out from under the bed and stood in the bedroom doorway, her face twisted in rage. Her whole body was visibly tense, Blood ran down her fingers onto the floor. Jesus, Lynn, Chris said. You playing hide and seek? I reached back and pushed him towards the steps. Move your ass, Chris, I said as quietly but firmly as I could. Lynn bobbed her head in fast, sharp motions. Began to grin, stretching her mouth open wider and wider so that her chin seemed to touch her chest. I heard Chris mutter a prayer, and then he was running down the stairs. I stood at the top of the steps, stuck between the love for a woman who clearly needed some serious help and self-preservation. I only want to help, I said, choking back tears. Her eyes focused on me once again. She slowly lifted the glass, holding it out in front of her. And then she started sprinting towards me, grinning with utter excitement. Thankfully, my body took over and I flew down the stairs, skipping 2 or 3 at a time. I made it to the front door before I felt her leap onto my back, wrapping her arms around my neck. Her open mouth next to my ear so that I could hear those terrible hiccuping noises. I shook her off of me, knocking her to the floor. I felt a searing pain in my back as she went, but I tore open the door and bolted out to my car. Chris was standing in the front yard, talking on the phone with the police. I didn't say a word. I just ran to my car and jumped in. Chris took the hit and followed me, still on the line with 911. I watched the rearview mirror. I'd sure I'd see her there, running after us. But I never did. I went straight to the ER and got 11 stitches in my arm, 3 on my back. The police asked a lot of questions and went back to the house to do a search, but of course, Lynn wasn't there. They advised me to stay with a friend or a relative for a while to file a restraining order as soon as I could, but none of those things would matter. Somehow, I just knew. I dropped Chris off at home and went to a motel an hour away. Wanted to put as much distance between me and Lynn as I could. This is where I've been for the last 4 hours. I thought maybe the police would find her. Maybe they'd get her the help she desperately needs. But now, I don't think so. Because 40 minutes ago, I got a text from an unknown number. Just 3 words. I found you. And a picture attached. The picture was dark and grainy, but I knew instantly what it was. There was no mistaking my wife's eye. I started typing this out immediately after. I don't know what to do. I'm alone and scared, and I can't help but feel that I'm being watched. And that was, my wife has been peeking at me from around corners.
Jesus Christ.
Oof! Well, yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm fucking saying.
That's fucking creepy, like...
Scary shit.
You were talking about, like, mimics and stuff, and I was like...
Scary shit.
Is that actually her? Is that a fucking mimic? That is fucking freaky. But the fact that her, like, mother as well, like, said, like, seek professional help, something was up.
Right? Right? And, like, the oh, man. The lines that are blurred between, like, what is possibly happening and what, like, is real is just, oh, it's perfect. It's fucking perfect. I love it. I love stories like this.
Yeah, that is so
They're
nicely
so
written.
Good at unnerving you.
Yeah, because like at the beginning, it's just like, okay, yeah, she's a serious person, doesn't like any kind of horror and stuff, can't watch The Shining, blah blah blah, establish a character journey and everything else, and like the first time she peeks at the dude in a weird way from the corner and then just scurries off. And then the way that she replies afterwards to what's like the joking comment about her like staring, and she doesn't even think twice about it, to be honest. You good?
Right. Yeah, I'm good. A little stutter.
Yeah, and like, then the whole comment with the mother, it's like, maybe the reason she doesn't do horror and stuff is because she snaps?
Maybe, maybe. I thought about that. Like,
Because there's nothing saying that she disappeared.
Exactly. And like, I know that like some people, myself included, most of the time, when in the right setting, if I'm allowed to, I can get really, really, really into horror. Like really into it. Like, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, and even to you guys, chat. When I was reading No End House last week, and there was like the scene where the guy, the version of the guy that was sitting in the chair that had like the number on him, when it said he was crying, I myself started like tearing up just out of instinct.
Yeah, and because
So,
you can
like,
picture the whole situation and being there. You let yourself sink into
exactly.
it. So this entire time, like, I'm building a mental map of the entire place and everything else. We don't know how Lynn even looks, other than that she has makeup, she has dark long hair, and that's it. That's all we know of her.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. And like, one source that I can point to, that is actually a pretty good, example of just like how people can just like absorb themselves into an idea, especially with horror, is Alex Wolff's performance in the movie Hereditary. Apparently, he needed a lot of fucking therapy afterwards because it was such an intense role, because he went method with that. And so the thought is maybe that she got so into being creepy that her mind just broke, and now she's like caused irreversible damage to herself, you know?
Yeah, and since the mother kept repeating, seek professional help, she knew something was up, and maybe the reason why she didn't accept Benjamin was because, you know, Ben was known to be big into horror and stuff. And the mother knew that, oh shit,
Exactly.
this is gonna be bad.
Exactly. And like, I love the trepidation of the mother with like her son-in-law coming to her and being like, yeah, your fucking daughter is being fucking creepy. What the hell, dude? It's so cool. It's so fucking weird. And it just captures that unnervingness. And then that last bit with the fucking text, just like, I found you, with like a close-up of her eye. Ooh.
Fucking bueno.
Perfect. Absolute horror. But yes.
Also, goddammit, Noble.
Thank you for... What? What the fuck is he doing?
This might be a bit of a mood whiplash, but in my head I could only picture Lynn as Dream Journey.
Okay, so fucking right fucking fast, chat. So obviously, for those who don't know, in Uma Musume there is like one of the fucking horse girls is based off a real horse named Dream Journey. Now that horse IRL was a very violent, very aggressive horse. It would like bite and attack other horses. And in the anime and even in the game, Dream Journey is quite the menacing character. So that is actually pretty fucking funny.
It is.
But regardless of that, thank you guys so much for joining me again on this creepy story time. Next week I will be reading SCP-3000 and The Whistler at 3:03 a.m. So until next time, check your doors and windows and make sure nobody's peeking at you from behind any corners.
Heck yeah. We'll be back tomorrow with a little bit more Blue Reflection, and on the weekend we'll do some more Rain World. Next week, all the games will be changed to just random games that I'll be playing. Tuesday will be the Travel Agency, it'll be a normal episode, and then we'll have the open episode of doing Super VR Ball, so we're gonna be losing our minds on that. But Zombie will be reading more stories every Thursday currently. We'll see what happens if I get the job, because the interview is next week. Hope fucking Lee I'll get it on Wednesday. Woohoo!
Hopefully.
We'll see what happens. But right now, we will go and raid Lilac Kaneko, who's playing Rain World at the moment. because they have been only going for an hour, so there's a good chance that they'll be going for a while. Plus, I think they do raid other people, so we'll be able to send people forward from that. But yes, this has been a wonderful time of the Midnight Zone broadcast, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Good night.